Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 10.
That's right, number 10.
Of Up the Waterfall podcast.
10, baby! Woo!
I am your host, Susanna, or Zanna, with my husband, Scott,
Hello.
as always, and our faithful engineer, producer, extraordinaire, Christian, behind the scenes. As mentioned, this is episode 10. We've made it through 10 episodes. Thank you for joining us and listening in or watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello.
Greetings.
Because it is our 10th episode and we've made it so far through the Epcot series that never ended, we thought we'd do a fun top 10 list.
Yeah.
And we are going to do our top 10 Disney parks attractions queues.
That's right.
That was a mouthful. You probably have a lot different ones than I do because you have been to the international parks where I have not, and
we'll see.
I've heard tell that the ones in Asia are kind of cool, so
there are some cool ones there.
But we're not going to separate it out by parks, I don't think. We're just kind of going to lump everything together and see what happens.
Right. One thing I did want to say about the top 10 attraction queues is that it could be interpreted many different ways, and I guess the way that I interpreted it in this particular case was to do kind of like just a cool space, some place that would be fun to be, cool to look at, and not necessarily something that tells the story of the attraction that you're about to see. So, because I know that queues can be used for that, and I know that a queue could certainly fit on either one of those lists, but
okay. We'll have to see if I think mine fall into both categories.
Oh yeah, so. I mean it could absolutely fall into both, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But we're just kind of doing top 10 cool queues.
That'll be the title. Top 10 cool queues.
Yeah.
Well, that said, I will jump right in and start with my number one queue. Well, not number one. I don't know if we're going to go in any order. My first one is in Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom, New Fantasyland, setting the scene, and it is the Little Mermaid attraction, which
good one.
I believe the technical name is Ariel's Undersea Adventures or something with undersea in the title. I don't know. We'll figure that out in post.
Might be Voyage.
That's the Disneyland one is right. Voyage of the Little Mermaid, I believe. Oh, no, wait. That was the...
There's so many.
Well, you know what we're talking about. The one in Magic Kingdom.
That's right.
It is one of my favorites because New Fantasyland itself was so ultra themed when it started. And this is no exception. It has the whole Prince Eric castle area, which, up until then, we didn't really have too much to go by. We had the animated movie, of course, which shows you the outside of it and some scenes inside when she's, can't speak. But this kind of brought it all to life, which is always a fun, way to do a Disney attraction when it brings a favorite movie moment to life. In Magic Kingdom anyway. So you walk in and there is a lot of water features going on. There's a water rolling underneath you and waterfalls ahead as you walk in. You can see them. Lots of rock work. This is supposed to be in France on the coast. And there's even a little Easter egg tribute to the 20,000 Leagues attraction where
that's right. Little
Mermaid once... now stands.
That's right.
20,000 Leagues once stood. Yes.
Of the Nautilus.
Our poster. I love that poster. We've never talked about it, but that's another time. Anyway. It was from Expo one year. And then you go inside. We're in the waterfalls and you're in a little grotto. There's still a ton of rock work and there's these fun little screens, which aren't huge screens. They're little... and there's little crabs that are walking across, and they have human things
trinkets,
with them.
Trinkets. Things that Ariel would be collecting.
And it tells you, on a sign what to do to help the crab out, basically.
That's right. Which things he should collect and which he should not.
And I have, great memories of lifting Geo up to see the screens because he was so little back then, and that some of them are up kind of high, and you have to wave your hands or do something.
That's right.
So that's fun to feel. When it first opened, there was a long queue for it. There was a long wait time, and so we experienced every possible corner of that queue. It's very detailed with starfish and shells and all sorts of fun things in the rockwork. And then as you keep going, you get to another area of the grotto inside underground where Scuttle is sitting there and telling you a story. So if you have to wait there for a while, there's definitely, entertainment to keep you busy. And then if you're walking through quickly because there's no wait time, which is the way it is now, you can still say, oh, there's Scuttle, and keep walking. And then the last area that you get to is right before you get on the ride, but there's actually a room over to the left if you look there when you're walking through. That hasn't, I haven't been on it semi-recently, but it's not been open the last,
it's probably only
many
open
times
when the line is just crazy
which I don't even
long.
know if that happens anymore.
Sometimes.
Maybe sometimes. So it's like a little rotunda area, and above you is written, painted on the walls, the siren story. Kind of tells, Ursula's up there too, so I think it might be the tale of Ursula. I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but if you can't get in there because it's not open, I would, ask a cast member if it's not too busy, if you could just walk over and look around. And even behind that, the round area, there's like the stairway that goes up to the kitchen area, and there's like all the cooking supplies and
Louis
vegetables, and you can hear him talking about les poissons. So and then you get on the ride, and it's very similar to California Adventure at that point, and then the ride, of course, is the same.
And that actually takes you kind of to the origins of the queue back when Disneyland first opened, when they had the rides for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and Peter Pan and Snow White. It was just a painted backdrop that kind of told you the story, and so that's what they have there at the load of that. So it kind of goes all the way full circle, if you will.
Yes.
So that's a good one.
All right. Well, I started off with a bang. What's your first one?
Well, for the first one, I actually am going to go overseas.
Okay.
I'm actually going to do a twofer.
Oh, all right.
In Tokyo Disney Sea, kind of once you enter the park, the first thing that you see is Mount Prometheus, which kind of houses that whole land, Mysterious Island. And in there, they have two fantastic attractions that are separate, but they're kind of right there together, and I'm just kind of lump them into one. Call it cheating, if you will. I don't care. There you go. So anyway, they have the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea attraction, and also Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is probably my favorite attraction out there. And so it just has a lot of the original, kind of like Captain Nemo, steampunk, a lot of copperized, I guess, metal, and those weird blues and copper colors. It really is amazing. So anyway, you go into there and...
Can't relate. Sorry.
Say again?
I said I can't relate. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's okay.
I've never been.
You will.
Here's this thing, though. Isn't that
Oh, that's
from it?
right.
So
This is the
this
car.
the blue you're talking about? If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see
But
this.
yeah, here's a little car of the actual car that is from Journey to the Center of the Earth attraction. But you go in there, and it's just kind of like a lot of volcanic rock and exhibits that kind of show what they've found in their voyages to the center of the Earth, which are some very exotic wildlife, and also some books that show you, where they've drawn in there the kinds of things that they've seen. And that kind of applies to both sides, because on one side they do have that for Journey to the Center of the Earth, and on the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they have kind of a lot of Captain Nemo's things there. But just the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea one, you can see out into the water that's in the middle of the volcano and the Nautilus that's in there. And the other one is deep within the Earth. And eventually you get onto an elevator that goes down, down, down a long, long ways. And then it's just a lot of hissing noises and steam and all kinds of volcanic rock. So it's just very, very themed and just wonderful. And I can't wait to take you.
Someday.
Very soon, I hope.
All right. Well, sorry I don't have much to add to that, because...
No, that's fine.
I mean, I've seen a few videos, but I've tried not to watch a lot of attraction ride videos.
It's always fun to be surprised when you finally go.
Because, I've never been. Okay, that brings me to my second one, which is probably on your list, I'm sure, which is Tower of Terror.
Ooh, yes.
And I'm speaking, of course, of the one in Disney's Hollywood Studios, because California Adventures does not exist. Disneyland Paris is a copy of the California original one, I believe, yes?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much,
and then
for the most part.
Japan's is a completely different storyline with
a totally
Harrison.
different
And I've
storyline.
never been there, so obviously I'm not going to comment on that
I'll
one.
comment on that a little bit.
But basically, I just, I don't really go on this ride. I think I've been on it twice my entire life.
No.
I'm not
We
one
should take
for
you.
free fall kind of gravity situations. But I can appreciate a themed environment, and that is it.
Like none other. Yeah, that's a good one.
So when you walk in, of course, it feels like, the lobby of a 1930s.
Even before you get to the lobby, there's kind of walking through the gardens, kind of the old gardens.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
used to actually throw a lot of steam in there and mist and steam, kind of just to make it mysterious, especially at night. And it was lit just so. And you'd
I
hear
don't know
the
if I've ever
screams
even
of the
been on it
people.
at night. So
I guess, since you haven't been on it that many times.
once when it opened, and once with you and our friend Nicole
Aw.
many years ago. So
But yeah, when
that's enough
they
for
don't
me.
do that all the time, but when they do,
Yeah.
it's very mysterious just to kind of like walk through that queue
And I think that
way.
is probably one of the places where they have a lot of events that you can do, private things.
Yes.
So a lot of people have gotten the chance to see the lobby and go, beyond the velvet ropes, if you will, to see more of the dust and cobwebs and the details in there. But it's so very detailed, and you can look
yes.
for, names in the register and books
Yeah.
in the bookshelves.
And essentially, I guess that the lobby is kind of just as it was when that
Yeah.
fateful event happened that Halloween night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it was frozen in time, but the people, they're gone.
And also some original Twilight Zone show
Yes.
Easter eggs in there. There's
A lot
like
of
broken
props.
glasses
Mm-hmm.
from that episode. So yeah, I mean, I don't have too much else to say about it, because
that's a very good one.
and then of course, once you get to the like boiler room area, that's a whole different
and that's
type of
certainly part
theming,
of it.
but it still works, and it's
the coolest
very
boiler
detailed.
room I've ever been in. It's usually supposed to be incredibly hot, but it's actually
this
a
is
good
true.
way to cool off.
Well, ghosts, I think, make
Yeah.
things colder.
But yeah, so even just the library scene, there's so much fun details in there, and then of course the boiler room. But as you mentioned, the one in Japan has a whole different story. It's essentially Harrison Hightower's kind of, that's his place, and
Yeah.
he's just trying to take all kinds of trinkets that he's found all around the world and kind of store them in his place. And so
And of course, he's part of the Sea,
that's right,
Society
the Society
of
of Explorers and Adventurers.
yeah, which we should do an episode on that. You definitely know more than I do on it, but it really is like all across Disney
Yeah.
attraction properties, or not even like, because it's on the
Disneyland,
cruise line,
Magic
and
Kingdom, the cruise line, Tokyo Disney.
Yeah, that would be fun.
It's everywhere.
maybe that'll be a future
Yeah.
episode.
But
But anyway, he's part of that.
yeah, and so then when you go through after the library, actually the library scene is completely different. That's where they have the Shoriki Otondo idol that is kind of placing a curse on that when, because he essentially took that. And he shouldn't have. And there's actually the coolest effect I've ever seen in any park ever, and I still haven't found out how they do it, about how Shiriki Atondo in that pre-show
Be careful, someone's gonna write in and tell you.
disappears.
And you
I
don't
don't
want to
really
know.
want to know, but I mean, I've even gotten right up close just to see how it works, and it literally just disappears in a flash. And I cannot figure it out, and I don't really want to figure it out. But then
That's
once
good.
you get through the place where you're about to load onto the elevator, there's all kinds of treasures that he's essentially claimed for his own that are all stored throughout. And each one of the elevators on both floors, so I guess since there's 3 elevators and 2 floors that you can load onto them, there's like 6 different pre-show areas that all have different concentrations of treasures.
Oh,
So
they're
it's
different.
A very unique thing, yeah.
Huh. Well, that's fun.
And then I would, of course, even lump into that the newest thing, the Guardians of the
Yeah,
Galaxy
it does have a fun
Mission
queue.
Breakout, which they've taken the original attraction, but put Guardians of the Galaxy in there, and
With Tivon, is that how you
with
say
the
it?
collector, and all of his treasures, including a hidden figment,
Yes.
who I guess has been collected.
Harold the Snowman is in there.
Yeah, but they have such amazing crystal clear screens in there where it shows the Guardians and they're about to break out, and I guess Rocket Raccoon gets out and he does his little thing in the pre-show area, and then in what used to be the boiler room there, they have all kinds of hidden things too, including the abominable snowman from the Matterhorn next door. That's always fun to see too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess all of that can be lumped in.
Yeah, it's sort of one queue, but not really.
That's right.
This is how we're going to stretch it out because we each have like 40 things on our list. We're
Yeah,
trying
I have at least
to keep it
60
to 10.
probably.
We may
Okay.
lose count.
Well, then I'll say on the next on my list, and I hope it isn't on your list, is Star Tours.
It is on my list.
Wait, did I say that? I meant to
No,
say...
you can do that one because I just have a few things to say about it. It's not like,
Okay.
Which one? In
Well, that's
studios?
the thing. There's so many good ones.
Well, I only know of
you know
two,
what?
and I've never been on the one in
I'll tell
Disneyland.
you why. The one at Disneyland, I think the one at the Hollywood Studios is probably the best one. But the reason that this made my list is because of the one at Disneyland, back when the People Mover ride was still operating, and it actually went through the queue, and that was just so cool, because even though the space that's in there isn't great, meaning it's not super huge, it's very tight, but they also have the People Mover that went through, and it's just so fun to see. And it actually took me back to Adventure Through Inner Space in my younger days when I used to ride that, and they had that very, all it was just a dark ride, just with the Omnimover or the Atomobiles, and you would walk through this small thing, you'd see the mighty microscope and all of the little hidden, not hidden, but tiny Atomobiles that people have where after they've shrunk. But then still going through that queue was the People Mover, and to me that was just the coolest thing. And so I would love to ride the People Mover so then I could see all of the people in the queue below me, and also ride that attraction just because it was very cool. But then when they changed that to Star Tours, they kept the People Mover was still there, and it would go through there, and that was fun too. So that, my memories of that at Disneyland is kind of why this one's on my list. But they also made a very cool queue for Star Tours when it opened, and they have all kinds of fun little props and things. They have C-3PO and R2-D2 working on a star speeder. And
is that the same as the one here?
It's a little different, but that scene is pretty much the same, where because that's kind of like the showpiece. But then after that, things get a little bit different. They actually had the little baskets with a lot of props, parts that would have the Imagineers' birthdays and initials on there that would kind of track along. But recently, when the one here at Disney World changed, they kind of made all kinds of new fun things, including that the luggage inspector
lots
guy.
He was fun.
And
then there's stickers on the luggage that are like for little hidden Easter eggs for other things.
The really cool thing about that, the luggage inspector guy, is he was not really doing such a good job, because he's talking to all the guests in the queue.
Yes,
and
letting
he
things
would
go
be
by.
missing all kinds of things that people were smuggling onto the attraction, and you could probably stand there for about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, and watch that whole thing, and each one has maybe hidden things, even from Indiana Jones, or maybe an Ewok smuggled
I think
in.
there's a Buzz Lightyear doll in one of them.
There's tons of things. So
yeah, that's why it was on my list, is just those fun little, not so much the first part when you walk in with it, which is just very Star Warsy, but when you get to the other section where there's all the little parts, and of course Captain Rex is in there now too, although he's also over in Galaxy's Edge. So
yeah. But I also have to throw in there, if you will, the one in Tokyo is actually pretty cool too. It kind of goes through some different rooms, but then at the end of the ride, when you're kind of going through the exit queue, there's actually a scene where it's kind of like a travel agency that actually shows videos of some places that are the videos from the choose your own ending scenes.
Oh yeah, I have heard
from
that from
Horizons, which was always fun to see. And so just even kind of the way that the buildings were made out there is just really cool to see. And if you ever get a chance, please go to Tokyo and always ride everything there, because don't just say, oh, they have a Star Tours out there. It's totally the same. No.
You've convinced me. Let's go.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right. Well, my next one is going to be like a combo pack situation because it's really almost all of Animal Kingdom.
I think you've
I mean,
taken
basically,
2 or 3 off of my list.
Yeah, I there's very little in Animal Kingdom that isn't like ultra themed, and it's not for the most part like fantastical things. It's like real stuff. Yeah. So when you go through even Kilimanjaro safaris, which a lot of these are the type of queue where people are just shuffling through them so fast. But this is one of those things where, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about Disney details at one point too.
Yeah.
But these are the things that make us fans of Disney parks, is because if you were to stop and listen to, you know, what's going on in the queue for Kilimanjaro safaris, or look in the little office or read all of the posters, like every single thing.
It's essentially an actual tourism office where they would like be taking reservations and phone calls.
Yeah.
They just happen to be out to lunch at that point.
Exactly. So the safaris, of course, Expedition Everest, which I've only been on once, will not go on again.
That queue is amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been through the queue a few times, you know, when I rode and with you, just to escort you, I guess. Right. But the same thing, like it's so ultra themed, and like you're building up to the fact that there's a Yeti that they're trying to find, and
plus, I mean,
beware and all this stuff.
There's a whole museum just of all of the wildlife and things that are in that area, and that leads to, wait, there was also this one guy who's kind of the protector of the mountain. Yeah. And how he's been wronged in certain times.
So that's a case of, you know, the realistic details of where it is supposed to be based on. Oh, yeah. Because along with storyline, because it's leading up to, I wonder if we're going to see this Yeti.
I think we will. But yeah, I mean, like, we know that Joe Rohde, for example, he, you know, taken tons of trips out to Asia to research for that thing, and all of that stuff is authentic.
Yeah, and if you aren't following him on Instagram, you should be, because he posts them on Twitter too, but you can read, it's very long, usually, all the things he writes, so you should follow him on Instagram to see the entire captions. And he was just talking about Animal Kingdom. He's in Bhutan right now. Yeah. So, I mean, and those details really extend beyond the attractions. They're just everywhere you look, which is why that's one of my favorite parks.
It is my favorite park in Florida, yeah.
And what else do I have on there? The safari.
There should be a couple more at least.
So before I get into Pandora, even It's Tough to Be a Bug.
Oh, yeah.
Which
that was on my list.
That is not a case of, you know, the authentic rest of Animal Kingdom stuff, but excuse me, it is, there's so many puns in that queue. There, you know, the Broadway musical posters that are turned into insect themed names,
which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's just really so fun. And then also the whole outside part, you're going through the winding paths of the Tree of Life.
That's my favorite part, because they've taken, you know, there's essentially, I guess, 325 animals all carved throughout the tree. And, you know, when you see it from afar, you see all these fun animals up top. But when you go through the queue, that's when you see a lot of the detail, and all the ones carved in the roots.
Yes.
And the trunks that are, you know, kind of winding throughout.
And
that's so amazing.
If you have a small child and you're worried about them being entertained, that's the kind of thing where you're fine in that kind of queue, because you can, do you see this? Do you see this one?
There's so
they
much.
Can look for a long time to try to find things. They don't need a phone.
That's a good one.
So yeah, that's a fun one as well. And then of course we head over to Pandora, which is a moon, not a planet.
That's right.
But it is themed to that. And, you know, wherever you, it's not a huge space, but the space that it is very nicely detailed with exotic, otherworldly plants, etc. The Navi River journey doesn't have as detailed or extensive a queue, but it does have some little things.
There's not as much there. I do like the little things that they kind of use.
Yeah, the little talisman or something. I'm not
like
sure what
wicker
they're. Yeah, wicker man.
But I know it's different.
But Flight of Passage is a lot to look at and take in.
That was also on my list.
Which, as you lead up to it on the outside, of course, you have all of the floating mountains to look at, and then there's the rushing waterfall that you can stop on the bridge and look in either direction. I mean, it's a great photo op. I think almost every time we've ever been on it have just been like, you can go ahead, because we're just taking it all in or taking photos or whatever. So there's that aspect of it where you're seeing all of the things around you and you're really immersed in the theme of Avatar and Pandora. And then, of course, once you get inside, the caves are all decorated and painted, and that's telling you a story of the Na'vi people and human interaction, because you'll see like a giant Na'vi handprint and then a human one next to it. So you're kind of getting, like, if you haven't seen the movies, which, you know, honestly, most people going on that ride have not. There's a lot of kids that have no clue. That's true. But it's kind of giving you sort of a backstory, and that the Ikran or Banshees, they're, I mean, honestly, before the first time, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. The first time we went on that attraction, I had no spoilers or anything like that. And I remember seeing that giant orange Ikran, and I was like, ooh, that's going to be a bad guy. And I went on it, and he was the bad guy in the thing, which he's trying to like knock in. Well, everyone has seen it by now, I'm sure. But anyway, I love seeing all the little details and the little, like, I don't know, dream catchery sort of items that are in there and things like that. So if you do the fast pass on that, you miss pretty much all of that interior cave area.
If you do the fast pass, you might be saving a lot of time, but you're really doing yourself a disservice.
At least once you should.
So much story. Because, I mean, first off, there's the whole, when you finally enter into the part that used to be. Right.
That's, we haven't even gotten to that. So then you get to the industrial former RDA, is that who it is? That's right. Company that was there, you know, mining and exploiting the land and the people and all of that stuff. Well, it's been, I think, 2 decades since they were there. I'm not sure how long it's been, something like that. It's been a while, because you can see. Yeah. So nature has taken back over. Exactly. So you'll see the industrial buildings and platforms and things like that, and all of the flora has taken back over with the bioluminescent kind of plants and things like that. So there's not, well, and then at some point you get to it, and there's like background noises as well of like the different creatures that you're going to see, either in there or in the Navi River journey. You can see some of those creatures too. And then once you get through all of that nature versus science thing, you get to the science lab area, which is its own fully functioning area, completely separate. And that kind of gets you into the mode of, okay, we're going to fly. Yeah, where they're kind of making the avatars that you will be using. And they have the avatar in the tube. In a water. Yeah. Or some watery liquid. Yeah. People call him Hank, I think. Which is, I've never heard that. Yeah. But okay. Well, he's probably about 9 feet tall, but he's kind of lying in a. He was recently refurbed because people were saying you couldn't see him at all, but now he's reopened again. So. Yeah, you couldn't see him. No, like they covered up the whole tank thing. You can also, I mean, there's so many details in the little lab areas and all the offices and things that they have, and notes in there in the labs. And then very cool. You get to the part where they tell you what's going to happen. And there's like a little map that shows you, like how many avatars are out flying around right now and things like that. And then, of course, you get on the ride. And that whole thing is all industrial as well when you get through all the lab stuff. But it's industrial in a good way. Oh, yeah. It's not like taking advantage of the land in that way. So, yeah. And that, I mean, I was saying on one of our first episodes, I think, that queue and the one for Millennium Falcon are both very industrial So it's kind of strange that they've been like not pretty, but the Flight of Passage one, definitely has its beauty as well because of all of the weird flowers and things like that. So
also, you could lump into that the Kali River Rapids as well. That's a fun part of the queue as well. They have they have kind of like a temple for the tigers area and all kinds of things for the earth, but also goes through the offices of the family that runs that raft shop. And it's just a lot of very intricate details throughout that. And also kind of there's a board that shows all the status of each of the different rafts that are out there. It's not quite as comedic as the one out for Jungle Cruise, but it's very authentic as well.
It's been a while since I've been on that one.
Yeah, you definitely could lump that into that group as well.
Yeah, I mean, the details in Animal Kingdom are just ridiculous. So
very much so. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah. So I guess that's your turn now.
That's right. The next one that I'll take from that would actually be, let's see here, the Roger Rabbit cartoon spin.
That's on mine too.
Come on, are you serious?
It's okay. Go ahead.
The Roger Rabbit cartoon spin from Toontown in Disneyland is so incredibly detailed and themed. Really takes you into Toontown and all of the antics of
the tunes.
The tunes, all of the different tunes, and Jessica Rabbit and Baby Herman and all of that, and it kind of goes through the seedy back alleys of Toontown. And
I was going to say in my section of that even if you haven't seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, going through that queue, you really get sort of the feel of that movie and who's who and, who's doing what kind of stuff. That's another queue similar to, I forget the other one we said, but if you're waiting there a long time, like there's plenty for you to look at and do. And that can be a very slow moving queue for some reason.
It does tend to move pretty slow, but that's okay because
there's something around every corner.
Dark and at one point, you could see where the dip kind of spilled over and it kind of disintegrated a lot of the tunes and things like that. There's a lot of you can see Baby Herman in there is kind of betting on the horses and things like that, and you can see the weasels going around trying to find Roger and that kind of thing. And at one point, you can even see the ride vehicles doing their spinning thing, and
so you can see what's going to happen to you soon.
That's right. So that's a very, very, very well detailed.
You can also lose track of time and
especially
lose all concept of
since it's
space and time
inside, and you don't even see the sun.
You come out and you're like, wait, have I been in there for 3 hours?
It seems that way. Yeah.
But it's always something fun to look at. And I'm glad they're keeping that around. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, and that of course can also be found at Tokyo Disneyland.
I had no idea.
Well, you will.
I've done very little research, as I mentioned. That was quick then, so I guess it's back to me.
Yes.
I'm going to go on to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in Magic Kingdom again.
Okay.
Because, there's not much of a queue in Disneyland. Like, it's pretty to look at, but it's not, earth-shattering. No?
No, it's not.
I know you love it all.
I love it all just because of it going through the area.
Right. But a few years back here in Magic Kingdom, we got a redo of our queue. And in it, there was a lot of interactivity added. You can do things where you set off dynamite explosions.
That's my favorite.
On the ride. So they're not always working. It seems like there's a lot of issues every now and then.
Well, I think you just kind of have to prime it first and get it set. And then as the car goes by, you can set it off and kind of surprise the folks on the ride.
That's another one of those things where you have to decide what you want to do, either getting on the ride quicker or playing with what's on there.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of things that fit into that as well. Like, I'm not going to do a whole number of them because we have to keep this, not 3 hours long. But things like the Dumbo queue, and that was redone, and the Haunted Mansion queue, and the Winnie the Pooh in Magic Kingdom. These are all ones where you can, do that part of it and join the line again when you're ready. It's not something that you have to we're like, oh, no one can go in front of me because I'm playing with this gross honey wall and need to
moving some bees. Hold on.
exactly. And I mean, I'll get to the Haunted Mansion one later because that might be on your list. I don't know. We'll see. But going back to the Big Thunder Mountain, there was also a lot of fun details added, like the portrait of Barnabas T. Bullion, who looks something like Tony Baxter.
A little bit.
Strange. Just like Harrison Hightower, we forgot to mention, looks like Joe Rohde.
That's true.
It's funny how that worked out. Anyway, and there's all sorts of fun little posters for that. You know, if you were a miner back then working on the Big Thunder Mountain, you would see like places to stay where you can get some victuals, people that are performing, things like that. So it's a lot of fun details, just backstory, kind of putting you in the moment, and then these new interactive elements as well.
My favorite in the new parts is that they actually show like a map of all the different mines, and it's so intricate. And then, of course, you can see the little canaries.
Yes, that's a fun part.
That have gone down into the mines, some of which are a little worse for wear.
Yes.
And that's fun. But also, what I really like about that queue, and this kind of goes for the one in Disneyland in Tokyo and all of that in Paris, is all of the props that are kind of scattered throughout the attraction are actual authentic mining props that the Imagineers have obtained over the years from ghost towns and things like that, and kind of just scattered them throughout. And so they're really authentic mining materials.
That's very cool.
That one would find in that kind of place. So
I also like the fact that, I think this was not a new thing. In the queue for Magic Kingdom, you can always have that great view of the mountain and the trains going on. We used to do a lot of, back when tilt shift photos were all the rage.
That's right.
You and I would do dueling Instagrams to get that train going, and then
good times.
I know, that was fun. We should do another one of those to commemorate
that's
That'd
right.
be
this
funny.
episode.
Just all three of us do that
Yeah.
now.
Exactly. We should go back because we have to try out
But,
all these queues that we're talking about.
We would have edited back then.
I know.
With, all the default
So
Instagram
many filters. Oh my gosh. When I look at my old Instagrams, they're so yellow and weird or pink. Very odd
and,
filters.
Burnt around the edges.
Yeah. With all the frames. Who uses frames now?
Anyway.
I did.
Back to our...
But I guess what I was going to say is that does kind of go for each of the ones also in Paris and Tokyo, as well as Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. It's just the fact that the queue goes pretty deep within the ride, very close to where the ride goes through. And then, of course, at Disneyland also has the mining town of Rainbow Ridge.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. So that is a fun that you can see that if you go to Rancho del Zocalo as well.
That's right.
And we always, if we eat there, we'll sit right next to the Big Thunder Mountain
That's
section.
right.
So you can hear the talking and Rainbow Ridge and stuff like that. Good times.
Good one. All
All
right.
right, back to your turn.
Well, let's see here. I will go ahead and...
You have so many on your list.
I really do. I have to choose. But I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is do a little bit of redemption because
I'm doing a visual. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can see it there. That's a lot. Sorry.
because there might have been some bad will, if you will, when I did my previous top 10 list. But I assure you that I very much enjoy this attraction. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it on my top 10 Q's attraction. That is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Pirates because you talked about...
Well,
Okay.
I do have another one, so...
Yeah.
But no, I really very much enjoy that queue, and I think I would lump in with that queue, of course, the Millennium Falcon that's right outside the area there, and how authentic that is, and how huge and massive it is. And you essentially, when you go through the queue, you go all the way around it, and you get to see all of the ins and outs of the Millennium Falcon, and then eventually you're going to board the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
But then even just going through that area kind of right after that, you kind of see some of the rocks that got bored through with the giant machines, which is very
That's true.
thrilling to me. But then also that big room where they're kind of working on some spaceships. And I also like the background tracks that they have going through there where there's some guys talking.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, there's some really funny ones. I have not heard them all because I've only been on that attraction just a few times, but I do go
More than me.
a couple times.
I actually had that on my list and then forgot to transfer it over when I rewrote my list. So it was kind of yeah, it's a cool queue to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not overwhelmed, I guess, because of they're trying to make it realistic to,
Yes.
you know, that
But
planet and et cetera. So it's not like super exciting
But there are
and fun, but
there are thrilling,
it's
exciting
detailed.
parts.
yeah.
Well, like when you finally do get into the pre-show, which I would call part of the queue.
Okay, yeah.
You got that amazing scene ahead, including the audio animatronic of, and I can never remember his name.
Hondo Onaka.
Yes, Onaka, which is a phenomenal animatronic. And he's a very comedic character because I think he's really out for profits and not so much anything else.
He's voiced by Jim Cummings. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I looked
Well,
it up
there you go.
because I thought he was voiced by Tony Shalhoub. I thought he kind of sounded like that, and then I looked it up and it was
He
Jim Cummings. I'm like,
looks
wow,
more
he
like
really
Tony
does everything.
Shalhoub than he sounds like him, but that's okay.
You take that back, sir.
Anyway,
And then
also
you have the table with the chess set as well.
Well,
That's
I was
like
going to say before that, during that scene, when you actually kind of see the Millennium Falcon coming in for a landing, that whole room shakes like there's no business. Like you know, they have the bass kind
I
of
guess
turned up
that's
to
true.
12, and that's just amazing. And then, of course, everything connects, and so you can then board the Millennium Falcon to go on your mission. And then, yeah, when you do get onto the Millennium Falcon, yeah, they do have that scene, the little fun chess, and that's essentially a lot of people's kind of dreams. They've seen it in the movies, and now they're actually physically on the actual set of the Millennium Falcon.
Can you imagine if they did a PhotoPass thing there that was like a magic shot that
Oh my
added
gosh.
the holographic?
Or you could be playing chess
Chess
with Chewie or
pieces.
something like that. But also,
Probably
what's
wouldn't work.
weird in there, I think there's like 3 or 4 Porg nests.
Yes, there's
scattered
quite a
throughout.
few.
I guess they've kind of taken over
Yeah.
and have settled in, which is kind
I
of
really
fun.
want a Porg animatronic. Like, we need
should
one
be
of those
one,
in
yeah.
there. Maybe they're working on
I
it.
think if they had one, though, Chewie would probably catch it and cook it.
Well, I think he made friends with them at the end. So
But also, you remember earlier in the scene, you could see the little Porg
yeah, the feet.
the little footprints that when he walked through some of the oil. And actually, they even used one of the droids as kind of like a place just to store tools.
Oh yeah, and they
Which
do
is
that
funny.
out in the marketplace too.
So yeah. So I want to, I actually like this attraction. So please
Okay, you're allowed to.
put it back.
That brings it to me again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this one that I know is on your list,
No.
which is Jungle Cruise.
Ah.
Both for me anyway, Magic Kingdom and Disneyland. I do prefer the queue in Disneyland because it's 2 stories. You have that fun animatronic bird, which I have no idea. Was he like original to the park?
No.
Okay. Well, he's cool and I like him.
Seems like he could be though.
Yeah. And it really takes you out of wherever you've come from and puts you back into, I think it's the 40s is the time frame there. Yes. You have like
Something like
40s
that.
music,
Might be
radio
30s or
type
40s,
things,
something
30s
like
or
that,
40s. The same time frame. That's why also I like the Disneyland one better because it's right next to Indiana Jones.
Yes.
And it's kind of all interconnected. So the queue, I mean, it's not really, but the queue for Indiana Jones is playing that kind of radio music outside.
So are you
where
lumping that attraction in with this?
I'm not, but I can if you want me to. We can lump it because that's on my list too.
Well, if I believe you're on your 5th,
Am I? I'm done?
so you might as well
you know
go
we're
ahead
gonna
and
do
lump
more
it.
than 5
Oh
each.
yeah.
So we'll see how much time it takes, but we can go fast at the end. So you have the music, which really sets the tone, and then Jungle Cruise, of course, has like fun signs and little puns along the way. In addition to, on the walls, weird bugs and former skipper cruise photos and stuff like that. So it really sets the scene and sets the tone for the attraction.
Very much so.
And then, of course, if you get a good skipper, it just follows through with that
Yeah.
whole thing. And
Yeah, when they
it's a fun time.
rethemed the jungle, the actual boats, kind of when they opened the Indiana Jones attraction, it's kind of all looks the same, and with that same kind of canvasy.
Oh yeah, because
look.
they used to be the striped
Yeah, they used to have the
awnings
with the
when it first opened.
bright red, green, or blue, or even sometimes yellow stripes.
There's this little guy.
That's right. So how does that lump in then with Indiana Jones?
With Indiana Jones, I mean, it's
that was definitely on my list.
Yeah.
But if you take it, then
Okay.
I can have a
we can
different
combine for space and time.
because this is definitely one that needs to be on everyone's list.
I do like how when you exit Indiana Jones attraction, you can see the Jungle Cruise boats going by. I have a story regarding that, which I'll save until the end. And you have the super detailed queue of Indiana Jones, which is around the same time frame. So you have, like I said, the same fun music that is playing. There's an old radio hooked up to a generator, which if you listen to background music at all, like that's one of my favorite
That is the coolest
background music loops, because it's got the generator whirring in the background of everything
the whole time.
And it's like such a weird detail that like makes sense, and it doesn't have to be there, but they did, so it makes it more authentic.
That generator is really the coolest thing, because in addition to doing that, it's powering the lights, or at least it's trying to, that goes throughout the entire queue. And if you look, you'll see that the lights that are actually strung throughout the queue, just as like Indiana Jones would kind of place there in order to kind of explore these caves, in order to see any of these things. Otherwise they would be in complete darkness. You'd have to string lights along. And the fact that the generator's not quite powered up the way it should be, the lights are kind of going in and out based on the strength of the generator that's going at the time. So that's just a really cool detail that goes throughout.
And you're following the path and the footsteps of Indiana Jones, but he's, been there before, and of course gotten rid of all the booby traps and whatnot that would have killed you many times over had you tried to do this path first.
I mean, first he comes across that one stone that literally has on 4 sides 4 different bad fates that could come across you if you do things wrong, including being burned alive or eaten by snakes or have pikes pierce you. So
it's very reminiscent of all of the films to be put into that part. And of course, the one room that has the giant bamboo pole, which when it first opened, I guess the ceiling actually moved a little.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen it work.
You've actually seen it. It sometimes
it makes noise every now and then.
But what they had, basically a bunch of bamboo poles kind of holding up the thing. You'd see these holes in the ceiling, and this one bamboo pole that just happened to be a little bit too close to the queue. You could kind of wind it around, and if you did it just so, the whole room, you'd hear a giant noise like the ceiling was about to fall. And then spikes would come down, and you'd see that a little bit.
And you would die.
Essentially.
No.
But that used to work. And basically it took a couple of minutes to reset. And so every now and again you'd find a bunch of people that hadn't seen this trick before, and you could maybe startle them by
I would definitely freak out.
it.
And then as you get closer in, you get to the part with the movie, which is a fun area to see what you can and can't do, and not to look in the eyes of Mara.
That's right.
And all that.
But even that is an authentic 1930s, 40s style of film.
Very cool.
A lot of props in there. It's just a really cool space. And when you think about what the whole purpose of this queue is, because they were adding this whole attraction, and Disneyland is so small, there was absolutely no place to put it. So they put it in the parking lot. And in order to get us into the parking lot, they had to make a super long, winding queue that essentially went in between the Jungle Cruise and I believe Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's all it is. It's just a way to essentially leave the park and get into the giant show building. But
it is a long trek.
In order to do that, it has to be long.
Yeah.
And so they really added a lot of fun details. I really like the caves, too, with the bat guano.
Bat guano and bat noises. It's fun.
That's right.
And then when you leave, you wind your way out, and then you start to see, if it's daylight, you can see light coming in, and then you can see the Jungle Cruise to your right. Here's my quick story. When I first visited Disneyland for the first time in 2012, I think.
Nope.
2011?
Yep.
Okay, so I went on Indiana Jones with a bunch of people, and it was nighttime, and we left the queue area, and you're walking down the path here, and then it was just like, darkness or whatever. And as we're walking out to the right, suddenly a light comes on and people all like scream, and it was the Jungle Cruise, and people were on the boat with the light off, because I guess you can turn the headlight of the boat off, and they purposely were trying to scare people that were leaving the queue.
Oh my goodness.
And like I said, that was the first time I had ridden the ride. I had no idea what to expect. It instantly became my favorite ride because of that drop and the rock coming towards you. And I was like, wow, that was so cool. But I was a little shaken because it was just like a lot had happened.
That's
and
right.
then I was petrified of that light from the Jungle Cruise boat. So
I actually did not know that story was coming.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be.
I've never heard that story before.
I thought it was going to
really?
be that you had seen a cat there once.
That's what I thought.
well, yes, that's also a good place to see some Disneyland cats because they like
Cats are
to
always fun.
climb up on the rocks there. But yeah, no, that was I think Amanda Tinney was with me on that first ride. Yeah. So anyway, I was
Very cool.
traumatized by a jungle cruise boat.
Okay, but I mean, I would say that to kind of tag along on that, since I had been on to the one in Tokyo as well, which is the skull. I cannot remember the name of it.
Crystal Skull?
Yes, that's right. I actually used the name for the fourth movie. There's a lot of really neat new things in there as well, including a giant room with a giant idol that you walk past. And so even though when the Tokyo Disney Sea opened, that was literally the only attraction that had been in a previous park before, was the Indiana Jones attraction. It was themed differently than the one at Disneyland. So essentially it was new, even though it was the same ride system.
And of course, the same track as Dinosaur.
That's right. And when I finally was told that, I was
did
like,
not believe it.
No, there's no way. And then I rode both rides a couple times, and I realized, yeah, it is the same. And I guess the thing that confused me was, because I know in Indiana Jones, there's that one scene where actually you go underneath the bridge that you've just been on. But when you do that in Dinosaur, you don't see the cars that go ahead of you, on top of you. So that is a fun fact.
Fun fact.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on to is this your fifth?
It is my fifth, but
We've
I
lost
still
track.
have so many.
Well,
But you know
we'll
what?
do honorable mentions.
Oh, yes, there will be many of those. And so I think I'm going to go a little bit simple here. I'm still caught between two, but I guess I'll go Pirates of the Caribbean,
That's on my list.
which is a classic attraction. I guess if you had to choose the ultimate one, that would be tough. As far as queues go, between Paris and the Magic Kingdom.
I can't compare them.
But that's okay. But to be honest, I think my favorite thing is not in either of those, but at Disneyland. And that even, there's that whole new queue area that Tony Baxter developed when they had to redesign that whole area to put in
'Cause it used to just
Phantasmic.
be walking
It was
through
just
the front
a whole
door, right?
it was a whole
I never
flat
experienced that,
surface
but I've seen photos, and
that
it was
went-
like, wow.
It went all the way from the edge of Rivers of America all the way up to the door. For Pirates of the Caribbean, it was just concrete.
Wow.
But because of Phantasmic and all of the crowd control that they had to put in and be able to manage crowds that were going to appear for that
It
show.
is a crazy place during Phantasmic.
Tony came up with that idea to have that bridge go over the queue. And it's actually quite ingenious. But in addition to that, to me, and this really takes me back to my childhood, entering those doors and just seeing the boats right there and smelling the water right there.
I agree.
That is the best thing ever. And so they do also have that in Tokyo. But what's different about that is they have the unload at Tokyo the same way they do it at the Magic Kingdom. So all of the guests, when they go up all of the guests have already left the boat, and before the boat comes up the waterfall, if you will. And so when you enter that same area in Tokyo, the boats are still right there, but they're all empty.
What's happened to the people?
Exactly.
They've been taken away.
So to me, that is the best thing. Is just because it really takes me back to my childhood. But going through the Castillo del Moro in the Magic Kingdom is still really cool. There's a lot of fun details, including the pirates, or I guess the pirate skeletons playing chess. All of the little hidden details, the barrels, the cannonballs, and all of that.
It is a fun queue. I had both of them on my list because I do love them for different reasons. It's always nice to get into that area on a hot day because it's just cool and air conditioned, and there is, fun stuff to look at. I do honestly, though, prefer Disneyland just because of the setting. I mean, I never experienced the original, but just going through and being in New Orleans Square, which is my favorite section, I love that part, and I love walking in and then seeing the water and the boats and the little
which are
parrot
literally
guy.
right there.
Yeah, it's super fun. And then, I mean, it's not the queue, but you can see Blue Bayou. So, I do prefer
and
that.
You go
Pirates,
to Lafitte's Landing with the interesting spelling, where it's a little bit different than the Lafitte's anchor outside. That's right.
I'm trying to think of what else about the one here.
In the Magic Kingdom, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's the chess thing. I do like right when you are loading at the one here, too, because there's that fun background.
First off, it used to be that you could choose your side.
Long
that's before
true.
They do Fast Pass. And so, one side I knew would always be longer, but you sometimes would have to go through there just to experience it. And so just the fact that each side is different was cool. They've kind of do it differently now because they've added Fast Pass, and so it's a little wonky. And so some things you won't see unless you go with a Fast Pass or not. I'm still not completely sure about that, about which one's best. But I do know that when you go on that right side, there's that where you walk past that cave where you can hear the pirates digging, trying to get that treasure. And they never seem to get it.
Wow.
Because they keep digging. What's up with that? One day they'll get that treasure. But then also the one in Paris is just really neat. There's so many different turns and things like that go all different ways. And they do have, it's not called the Blue Bayou, but they do have a restaurant in there as well that's, I can't remember the name of it, but it's there. And it's a little bit more Caribbean in feel, more tropical than the one in Florida, I think. But it's still just really neat. And then the ride itself is completely bonkers. But we're not talking about rides right now. We're talking about queues.
All right.
So had to throw that one in there.
Yes. Is it back to me? I mean, we're beyond 10 at this point.
That is now
all right.
10.
I will do quick.
It's more than 10.
It's way more than 10 because we lumped a lot together.
Yeah, I guess we did do that.
I'm going to do just a few on my list.
Sure.
And then we can go back and forth because I do have the Enchanted Tiki Room on both coasts.
Mainly the one in Disneyland.
Disneyland is, of course, better because it has the fun,
they have that
interactive
original
gods
show
and
with the tikis and the gods. Yes,
I love it. I love that they haven't changed the voices and that it's such a cool old school.
And even that little pre-show that talks about the Hawaii, how they
they recently changed.
Yeah, they
that
did
one.
change it, but it's still kind of authentic and original.
And they have
Dole pineapple.
Can have Dole Whip and bring it in with you there, which is really cool.
I really like that ride.
I do too. It's fun. That was one of my rides that wasn't a ride; it was an attraction.
But that's okay.
And then the one here has always been different and not as elaborate, but it's still fun. I always liked the setup of the different ramps that you could choose to be on.
Essentially,
and the
that's
water.
Old school Magic Kingdom.
Yeah,
dating
exactly.
back to 1971.
And you have that fun, tiki pagoda situation in the beginning. That's fun to take a photo looking directly up at.
I still don't think I've ever done that.
We'll have to go do that.
I don't think I've even looked up it before.
Really?
I've seen so many photos.
I'll show you a photo. Yeah, you do. Let's see. I'm just going to keep going.
Go ahead.
Because I'm sure these are on your list too.
I'll fill in the blanks.
I also have Haunted Mansion on both coasts.
Yes.
And I had mentioned briefly the Haunted Mansion here has the brand new, well, not brand new. It's been a while now. It feels new still. interactive queue, which you can bypass and not even do, which I think was an ingenious idea because a lot of people just want to get on the ride.
But I think you're doing a disservice if you do skip it just to be able to get onto the ride faster.
Well, sometimes you just
But I
want
mean,
to.
if you haven't seen that part, you should. You should check it out at least once.
Definitely. So that's fun. But I do also enjoy the Haunted Mansion queue in Disneyland, even though it's completely different. Their little graveyard scene is completely different. They have a lot more fun gravestones, I think. And just like going around the back to get into the front of the mansion part, and it's like the old Southern style mansion is really cool.
And they have that little pet cemetery that's right there in the queue.
Exactly, with the cat and the skunk and all that fun stuff. And once you get inside the Disneyland mansion, there's sections that are on the ride of the one here, which you get to see a little more up close, like, you know, that hallway with the portraits you're walking through instead of...
that's part of the queue.
Yeah, and the moving busts is also part of the queue. And then, of course, that's all different during Haunted Mansion Holiday.
That's right. All different.
So, yeah, I really like both of those queues, and they're different, but still good.
And then you lump Phantom Manor in with that, which is completely bonkers. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, someday I'll see that. I've never been. I just have a couple more, I guess. Okay. In Disneyland, in Fantasyland there, the Snow White's Scary Adventures is a fun queue. It's not, you know, it's just like fun stuff to look at.
But yeah, they do have that tiny little, the little crypt area and the apple. Yes,
it's just fun. And none of the other dark rides really have much of a queue, like interactive queue to look at in there. By contrast, our Peter Pan's flight here recently got a new queue, which I'm kind of torn on because it's really cool and I love looking at it, and it definitely, you know, takes up the time that you would just be bored waiting to ride this because it's usually a very long wait. But it kind of, in my opinion, takes you out of the story of the ride because you're already seeing
you're not it's not setting you up for the ride.
You're already seeing their rooms, even though you're going to fly into one of the rooms and you're seeing Nana. It's just it's set up a little weird, and I've always said that when I walked through it. Also, the fact that it's like so detailed and like Tinkerbell is flying through and you can see her little magical pixie dust, and then you get on the ride and it's like it hasn't changed in 45 years. It's kind of...
I never thought about that. I think they were just kind of like, okay, we get to redo the queue, so let's really do it up. But they didn't really think about how it felt or fit in with the ride itself. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it on its own. It's just kind of... That's a very good point. A weird juxtaposition. Imagineers, what say you? Well, anyway, other honorable mentions for me are the Monsters, Inc. ride in California Adventure has a lot of fun puns with the little vending machine and things like that. Same with the Muppets movie, 3D, Muppet Vision 3D, tons of puns. And it's like you're, you know, backstage at the Muppet Show with the level of fun little nods and details and puns. I think lastly for me would be the Frozen ride. I would agree. Which... Again, this is a case of where the queue is almost better than the ride as far as detailing and stuff goes, because you get to walk through, you know, the little sauna and the whole thing. I mean, the ride is fun. It's just short. It's amazing how much detail and kind of placemaking, if you will, in such a tiny amount of space. Yeah, you're really just like in a sort of, you know, outdoor courtyard area and walking through. That's a good one. I lied. I have a couple more. That's it. Go ahead. Honorable mention again would be Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Oh yes. Which they've done away with a few of the interactive games, but it's just because of where it is and it's like set back and you're down a little. Yeah, just from the main walkway. I like it for that. Yeah. It's a good mood that they set, and you walk by the. And just that it's a whole Snow White's house. It has rock work and things like that, and it's in the middle of the new Fantasyland. It's a good one.
Yes. And then I had written down Toy Story Mania and Slinky Dog Dash, but it's just toy stuff. So
It is
it's
toy
fun.
stuff, but it's fun.
It's
Plus,
great and
they do
well.
have the Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
well
fun.
detailed and stuff like that, but it's not like
I
mind-boggling.
think originally it was, but yes.
And that's it. I'm done.
Okay,
I have
well,
nothing else to
Let
say.
me just go through a few of my honorable mentions then, if you will. The first one I wrote was Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, because it has essentially like the whole
That's
history.
almost cheating.
Really? It has.
I mean, it's not a queue. It's just like a waiting area.
Didn't you just say that about what? Which one am I thinking of that she just said?
I didn't cheat at
That
all.
was a show.
Tiki Birds, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
Kind of like along the lines of that, but that's okay. I'm
All
just
right.
defending myself. It has kind of like a little museum of the history of Disneyland, which to
This
me
is
is
true.
super cool. Plus,
It
has
changes
that,
out.
the White House in there,
Yes.
as well as like that
little
fun
miniature
little movie about
statues.
even just how they got Royal Dano to do the voice of Mr. Lincoln. So that one.
all right, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. I want to throw in there also Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain, when it first came out, was just really cool because it had a lot of really awesome rock work. This is both the one at Disneyland and the one in Magic Kingdom. But to me, the best one is actually in Tokyo. It goes deeper into the mountain, and there's a one point where you actually kind of curl down quite a lot of levels all the way down to the load area. It's right in the middle
Wow.
of the mountain. It's just amazing. So, for really cool rock work, I wanted to throw in Splash Mountain.
Okay, I thought about Splash Mountain, but I
And
Didn't
I'm
write it
going to
down.
include Matterhorn bobsleds. And one might think, wait, what?
I almost did that because I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Really?
Yeah, go
I think I know what you were thinking I was going to say, but I'm not going to say that. To me, it was just cool just to be able to be right next to the mountain, right by the rocks, and you could look up and see, at different vantage points, the
Waterfalls.
the waterfalls and bobsleds going in and out of different caves, and you'd hear the yodeling, and sometimes you'd see Hans and Otto climbing the majestic Matterhorn.
And hearing the growling of...
Oh, that's right. The occasional
Snowman.
growling of the abominable snowman. It was just cool just to be right alongside the rock. They've actually changed the queue up there a little bit, but I think it still applies.
I thought you were just going to say that...
The yodeling?
No, not even that. Just that it was outside the whole attraction and you
Yeah.
could look around you the whole time.
Yeah,
That's all.
Which is kind of like what I
I
said.
know
so,
you.
Okay. Yes, you really do. I should not have doubted you. Anyway, you said the Monsters Inc. Ride and Go...
Not
Monsters
Ride and Go
Inc.
Seek.
But the one in Tokyo... No. I've never been to it.
Oh,
I've-
yeah, it's always closed when you
I
go.
was at Tokyo 2 different times and 2 different years, 2 different times of the year, and both times the Monsters Inc. ride was closed. It was the only ride closed, so I've actually never encountered that. So I
Okay.
have no idea.
Cool cue.
It probably is.
Why
I'll
did we
bet
bring it
was.
up?
Because I'll bet it really is cool.
Okay.
And I
well,
just don't
that's
know
kind
it.
of a given with
Yeah.
stuff in Japan.
Sure. But I would also say then in California Adventure, Radiator Springs Racers.
I almost said that one too.
Only because of how authentic the whole town is to the actual story. But it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on that when it was a very, very long wait as
Yeah.
well. And I was kind of
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, I
That's
wish there
true.
was more to look
But
at
I
or
like
see.
that you
but-
actually see the actual Radiator Springs
yes, that's
of
fun.
the town got its name from
Yeah.
right there. I would say Soarin' over California. In California is cool because it has the history of
You have always said
history of aviation from California standpoint.
that. Agree to disagree.
Okay, that's fair. I like the history of the aviation, and it's got great themed music, especially from The Right Stuff. But let's see, we already said those things.
And we've gone so over 10.
I wanted to add Carousel of Progress just because it has the
Oh my
video
gosh.
of
We
Walt
were joking
Disney.
about this before we started recording. And
But
I
it's
said,
the only one that has the history, the little video of Walt Disney. So
here's a pro tip. You can stand there and watch the video without waiting in the queue. But why would
Okay,
you want to do that?
okay,
Because it is a
okay.
fun ride. So.
the one in Finding Nemo at Epcot is fun.
Okay.
A little bit. Kind of goes through some underwater things.
I'll allow that. I really like that one.
I would say Test Track, both the original and current. But I think the
I
original
feel like
one
that's
was
a
better.
different
It has definitely a
category.
weird vibe.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the queue.
No, I know. I'm saying like everything we've talked about has been like incredible details
Yes.
or interactivity,
That's
which
why-
this has interactivity, but that's it.
No, I'm not talking about the new. I think I'm talking more about the
old
test
one?
dummies and all that. Although that music was very monotonous. And,
Yeah.
but
Still very monotonous in the new one.
but to me, I like it.
Okay.
I wanted to add the Great Movie Ride, which no longer exists, but was a
rip.
great queue because
Well, that'll
had
have
a
to
lot
be
of
for
props.
a extinct attractions
and that
episode.
movie that you got to see.
I know.
Great.
Rest in peace.
I would throw. I was gonna say Rock and Roller Coaster. No, I'm gonna take that.
For those
okay.
of you keeping score at home, he's taking it
I'm
out.
gonna say Dinosaur. If we
Yeah,
hadn't
I was
talked
asking
about-
people online, and I got 2 mentions for dinosaur. So
One of whom was actually from Aladar, the dinosaur that you
yes,
get. So, but that's really cool. Even the little museum part at the beginning, that's narrated by Bill Nye, the science guy, is a lot of fun. I'm going to throw in Sinbad's storybook voyage at Tokyo Disney Sea. There's not really a lot of great detail in there, but it does have these amazing paintings that show you the scenes that you're going to go through. And it's also the anticipation of seeing the greatest ride in Tokyo is
yes.
awesome.
I
So,
hope to someday have that
yeah,
number
you
1 on
will,
my list.
and it will be soon. Let me see if there's anything else. That might be it. Yeah, I'm going to say that's all.
Hey, what's your least favorite queue? Because I have mine.
Why don't you tell me yours,
It
and I'll
is
see if I can think
the
of.
Finding Nemo submarine voyage in Disneyland.
Oh, no.
That is
That's a good
such
pick.
a long queue because it takes forever to load.
It's such a good ride, though.
It
But
okay.
you're, okay.
Not rating the ride.
No,
I
the
know.
queue, and there's like nothing, and it's one of those things where they have like those herdy metal bits, so you can't even like lean up against the railing. It's got those pokey things. Not a fan. I've been
Okay.
there when it's been too hot to be waiting that long.
Okay,
For a
I
ride,
guess
so.
you should always ride that when there's no queue then.
I'm not a fan of like that
No,
whole
that's a
section.
good
I was
point.
thinking of like Autopia when it's really hot and crowded.
I
It's not fun either.
I think the only thing that's good about that queue is that you just get to see the submarines.
Yeah,
kinda
but sometimes
loading
you
and
don't. You're all
unloading.
the way over looking
No,
at.
but you always get to see the lagoon that they're floating through,
I guess
which is beautiful.
not a fan.
Matterhorn in the background,
Okay.
gorgeous. Yeah. And
Well, go ahead.
let me just throw one more in there, just the kind of the Astro Orbiter, one of the Magic Kingdom, because you get to go through the gantry, which takes me back to my childhood. A lot of fun, because that's
Gantry is a
very
fun word.
and it's very unique because you definitely get to a point, a height that you just don't get to anywhere. And I really want to throw in the original one at Disneyland. That's even better, but it's no longer there. So, although
We
they
should-
can put it back.
We should do a thing where like you do a long edit and then go back to Scott, who's still listing attractions.
I could do more, but I'm going to go ahead and start and say that this has been a lot of fun.
It's always fun when we compare and contrast.
Yes,
We do have
you,
a lot of similar ideas, but
you
then
had some on
sometimes you
yours
don't.
that I didn't even think of, and
Yeah.
you had some that they were on my list absolutely. So
that said,
that was good.
we of course would love to hear from you with what your favorite
Yeah,
cues are.
I'm sure that we've probably even forgotten one or two. That
Probably,
you're probably
'cause-
thinking, what about this one?
Yeah. I had asked on Twitter and the Xanaland Facebook page earlier today
Oh,
to
yes.
see what people were thinking. But there wasn't any that were said that I didn't already have or think of, so I
Okay.
didn't really mention them.
And I
except for
probably
Dinosaur.
mentioned so many in my
That's true.
honorable
You've
mention
covered
that
them
I've
all.
Probably covered the whole park or all parks. And I should say Shanghai was not listed on my parks because I've actually never been to Shanghai.
Yeah. So if you
So-
think Shanghai has cool cues, let us know.
Probably the Pirates there is probably pretty cool, I would guess, but I have not seen it.
Maybe
or
it's
yet.
terrible.
It could
Maybe
be.
it's just literally a single straight line to
I'll
the door.
bet it's not. Though.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to episode number 10 or watching
Yay.
if you're watching us on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing and liking. We hope you will do that if you are not already to spread the word and
Please
share the
do.
love. We love getting comments. We love
Yes,
hearing
please.
what you think of the show. I know it takes a lot out of your day to actually take the time to bother to comment or respond.
Yeah, please comment on any of the media, whether it be Instagram or
Yes.
YouTube or on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere.
We appreciate every listener and every comment. So thank
Yes,
you.
please.
If this is your first time listening or you've listened to all 10 episodes, including this one, we would love you to spread the word and let people know that you found a new podcast that you hopefully love. If you have any ideas for future episodes, we'd love to hear those too.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for listening, and we've enjoyed having you up the waterfall.
That's right. Up the waterfall. Anything can happen at Disneyland.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's only part of it. We got a big climatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire, and we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
Now, how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.